I'm Karen Burniston, the designer of Poppin' Cuts dies. Now today I've got a fun tutorial for turning the base of your Stampin' Up! Poppin' Cuts dress form insert into a floating floor. Now what's fun about a floating floor is that anywhere along that floor that you will put a slot and an L-shaped anchor, you can then use those anchors to animate a host of other items, and then those items will pop up and pop down as the card is opened and closed. Now you'll need the Stampin' Up! Exclusive card base for Poppin' Cuts and the dress form insert. And then I'm just going to start with a 12 by 12 sheet of cardstock and cut it into two 4 3/4 inch strips. I choose 4 3/4 because it leaves me a 2.5 inch strip, and that is usually just perfect for framelits or sizzlets. Poppin' Cuts all work the same. You put the insert in, you slide it up until it touches, and then you see if your little tick marks in the center line up. And if they line up, it's centered. Then you put a strip of cardstock over the die cutting area. You use extended cutting pads and just roll it through the Big Shot machine. Now for this technique, I'm going to ask you to resist the urge to immediately start folding your Poppin' Cuts, but you can take out those little confetti pieces and get rid of them. For this technique, we want to leave that nice and flat until we've done some work to it. But let's go ahead and cut a backing card. I'm going to take my insert out completely, cover the die again with that other strip of cardstock, and then roll it back through the Big Shot machine. Now with nothing in the die, the base is going to cut just a plain A2 size card. In the case of the Stampin' Up! Base, it has a decorative edge, and then it also has some tuck-in slots for a closure on the other end. You score that in half at 5.5 inches, and then I'll show you how that little closure works. You just tuck that little decorative edge in, and that will hold your card closed. This floating floor template is a free download from my website. Go to KarenBurniston.com, click on Free Templates up at the top. Now, your first step is just going to be to cut it out, and we'll use the big template first, template number 1. So I'm just going to cut out around the outside edges. That's actually going to correspond to the size of that Poppin' Cuts card that you just cut. Now, once you've cut out the template, you'll see that it lines up nicely with the bottom of your Poppin' Cuts card. And then what I usually do is I just use paper clips to hold it in place, or I sometimes will just staple it in those two little outer corners. Those little areas are going to be cut away anyway, so you're not going to see the staple holes. That's a lot quicker. So either or. I suggest doing your scoring on those dashed lines first, and you can either use your Simply Scored board, or you can just use a ruler and a scoring tool. And then once you've got those scores done, then you can take your scissors and remove those little corner areas. Now one thing is I did design the template so that as you're cutting out this little corner area, you'll find that one of the diagonal lines perfectly corresponds with those little tuck slots that are already in your base, and that'll just cut them away, but you'll find it just lines up perfectly. It's very easy to cut. Now once you've cut it, then you're just going to work both of those folds as mountain folds, and there you have one of the supports for your floating floor. You only need to work 4 simple folds to fold the Poppin' Cut. Just slide your fingers up until they stop and get that valley fold started, then the mountain, then the valley. And then when you go to fold everything flat, just give it a little bit of help that first time. Really make sure that everything is pushed all the way forward. Poppin' Cuts are very easy to fold, and as you see from the side, it's just a box. Now for the floating floor, you're going to fold under those 2 mountain folds, and then that's one of the supports, and now we need to create the second support. So let's go back to the template sheet and cut out template number 2. And for this one, I'll just cut it nicely on 2 sides, just something that I can line up with the corner of my cardstock. And then again, I can just either paper clip it or I can staple it into place and then cut out on the solid lines with scissors. After cutting out that U-shaped piece and removing the template, then you just fold up the 2 legs, and that's going to be the other support for the floating floor. Now, where that's going to go is actually behind the table there, and those 2 little legs will just go right to the back of the table legs. Now, when you're adding your adhesive, I did put a reminder on the template. You don't want that adhesive to go all the way down to the fold, because there is a portion of those legs that will be extended down below the floor, because that's actually a support. So just use a tape runner, and I did design the template so that that U-shaped piece will come right up to the fold underneath the table. So it should be very easy to line it up. Just get your thumbs in there, give it a good press, and now you've got the second support for your floating floor. Now let's take a look at how that's going to look when it's added to the backing card. It will sit on those 2 supports, and then it will float up above the backing card. Before you glue that inside the backing card, then you need to create whatever pop-up items that you want to be suspended in the floor, and then find the location where those will be in their flat position so that you can mark where those slots need to go. You can put that in the backing card temporarily and fold it down to kind of see how far up those pop-up items could extend in the flat position so that you know where they can go. Then you can just pepper them anywhere all over the floor. Again, I'm going to put these face down forward as they would be when they were folded down flat. And then I will just take a pencil and mark the ends wherever those little L supports need to be to pop those items up. Now I put a little suggested slot size on the template. That's not really a template. You don't have to put that over and cut that exact slot. But if you just keep that nearby, that'll help you kind of judge if you're cutting a slot that's a good approximate size to that one. And again, you're just going to use a craft knife. This is the only hard part of the template because you will have to get your craft knife in there and cut those little box slits. But it's very easy to do. Just 2 parallel cuts and then do the ends and then just take the end of your knife and dig it right out. Now once your slots are cut into your floating floor, then you'll be able to add this now to the backing card. So the idea here is just to fold it down flat, and then you'll see that that first support, the one that you added behind the table, is going to stick out lower than your fold of your Poppin' Cuts card, which is good. And then you're going to add your adhesive on both of your supports. Now what you're trying to do is line up that additional support that you built, that one that's hanging down lower. That's going to line up with the center of the backing card. Now take your time with this so that you can get the sides lined up at the same time, and then just give that first support a press and then give your other support a press. Now this is the part of this card assembly where I realized that I forgot to trim my decorative edge off of my interior Poppin' Cuts card. So I'll weave that now into my trimmer and do that after the fact, but I really would suggest that you do that first. Just go ahead and make sure on your Poppin' Cuts card that the decorative edge is trimmed down low enough that it will fit nicely inside your backing card. I'm a fan of plenty of adhesive when I'm attaching a Poppin' Cuts card, so I'll just take my tape runner and sort of shellac that whole flat area of the back of that Poppin' Cuts card, and then I'll just fold over my backing card and press it to that exposed adhesive. The template sheet has a little suggested size for your little L supports, but again, you could just eye them. Just some cardstock, fold it into an L, some glue dots on the bottom of the foot, slide it down through a slot, and then with the card open to 90 degrees, make sure that the support is standing up. Really nice and tall, just like that. When you fold the card closed, it folds down the support. And then I think the easiest way to add something to the front of each of those supports is just to add a little mini glue dot. Then I'm going to lay my embellishment down face down in front of it, kind of where it will be when the card is closed, and then just close the card. And that will press that glue dot to the back of that embellishment and pull it right up. And now I just need to do that 3 more times. I'll just quickly explain the decorations that I added to my card to finish it. I used the honeycomb textured impression folder on the front of the card along with some baker's twine and then another one of my colored hearts. My idea was to fashion a dress that would look like the Queen of Hearts dress. So I did start with the dress-up framelits and cut one of the dresses, but then I did actually make my own little adjustments to it using just pieces of cardstock and some stamping and coloring. I stamped a greeting and then cut it out with a framelit, and then I used a scalloped border punch to add those borders top and bottom to the card, and then just kind of peppered my individual hearts around the card. Now when that folds up, the built-in closure is still going to work. I did design the floating floor to avoid that, so you'd still be able to use the built-in closure. Find a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in your area to order these dies at StampinUp.com. You can always find Poppin' Cuts ideas on my website, KarenBurniston.com. Thanks for watching.